When it comes to microbrand watches, let's face it, most of them are different iterations on dive watches and sports watches, but let's take a look at something different, right? Let's take a look at a microbrand dress watch. More specifically, the Equis. Oh. We'll just call it the Templar. Here it is. It is 3:41 p.m. Let's get down to business. So as you take a look at this watch, the first thing you will notice is this big gold thing down here. This is not a tourbillon. This is an open heart, and I will say it's quite a fancy take on one with a lot of decoration there. I know not everybody is a huge fan of open heart watches. I'll get into that in the pros and cons. And then you'll see another complication right around the 12 o'clock, and that is not a moon phase indicator. It is actually an AM PM or a day-night indicator with a 24-hour dial. So there's some definite interesting things about the design, and there's some definite pros and cons. We're going to be talking about that later, but first let's jump into the specs. So this watch is 43 millimeters when we're looking at the diameter. Its lug to lug is 49.9, so just under 50 millimeter lug to lug. This has a sapphire crystal. It says a Japanese automatic, and I'm fairly confident this is a Miyota base movement. It says case shape round, bandwidth 20 millimeters, band length 245 millimeters. It has a 3-bar water resistance rating, case thickness 13 millimeters, although I do not trust that whatsoever. Let me see. Let's measure this in real time, shall we? Because this seems like a thick boy, and I don't trust watchmakers. 14.4. Yep. All right. They were off a little bit. Maybe they were not counting the crystal, although the crystal doesn't sit too high atop the case. 14.4 millimeters thick. This says it's water resistant and shock resistant. And again, I said 3-bar water resistance rating. Case material, it says alloy, but we can be sure this is probably like 316L stainless steel specifically. Band material, leather. You have black leather, gray leather, tan, or brown as an option. I guess this is either the tan or brown. And we're going to be talking about the strap later. What I will say is it is padded, but it feels better than like a factory Seiko strap. I know that's not saying much because, you know, Seiko straps. Ugh. Now, when it comes to the name of this watch, the Templar, the watchmaker has a little blurb about this watch that I should read, and I quote, "Named after the poor fellow soldiers of Christ in the Temple of Solomon, also known as the Order of Solomon's Temple, the Knights Templar, or simply the Templars, was a Catholic military. Their code of conduct was designed to keep the warrior knights humble, chaste, and most of all, obedient. This collection honors these brave knights." Now, here's the thing. On the surface, Knights Templar seem very, very cool, and they're very prominent in pop culture. Excuse me, pop culture. I almost said Pope culture. You'll see why. A little Freudian slip there. When I think Knights Templar, I think of like Indiana Jones. All right. I mean, there's obviously some very, very deep historical significance, and I was almost hesitant to read that blurb because I feel like by ending it on this collection honors these brave knights, that's skewing it very, very positive, and I'm sure a large portion of the commenters will be upset if I also don't bring up the other side. But if I also bring up too much negativity, then people will be like, no, they did some good things too. So, okay, we're going to be covering not just the watch, but I'm going to be giving you a little bit of a history lesson. And don't get mad at me if I'm wrong. I found most of this on historychannel.com. Jewish person talking about the Pope, about the Pope. The smart thing would be to probably not, like, say one thing or the other, but I'm not smart, so I'm going to try to give you my take, according to historychannel.com. Not a sponsor, but if they wanted to pay me, come on, let's do it. There were some cool things about the Knights Templar, okay? They were founded to protect pilgrims in the Middle East. Now, why the pilgrims were there in the first place, I don't know. I wasn't there. Some of my family members were a long, long time ago, and I'm sure I would have probably had a lot more family members if the Templars didn't kill them! We'll talk about that in a second. The Templars provided a vast amount of banking and financial services for people in that era, and they were quite helpful to people in that era in regards to like holding on to assets and investing, and again, just simple banking needs. Very, very interesting. When we think Knights Templar, we think of like warriors, but most of them were just nerdy bankers. Another cool thing is they used a secret cipher to communicate, which again brings in the Jews talking about Catholics. And finally, they were against abusing alcohol. So that's positive, right? I mean, I don't even drink. Not that Jews don't drink. Jews definitely drink. Most of our holidays are surrounded by drinking. Just a thing. Personal thing. The truth is, if I ever did drink, I'm scared of what I might do. I'm scared that my negative qualities might come out. You know, I work too hard. I love too much. I care too hard. Just kidding. If I drank, I'd be a liability. If I drunk, I'd be a liability. So if we leave it at that, you know, the cool services they did, the protection they provided, the secret codes, the Da Vinci Code, the no alcohol, and these brave warrior knights, they seem really, really awesome, and they shouldn't be controversial at all, right? But like the thing is, like the one thing is like the Crusades. It's like that happened. So I feel like we should probably also talk about that. Because this was not insignificant, okay? During the Crusades, there's an estimated 5 million people that died. So, I mean, that ain't chump change. You see, in 1095, Pope Urban II called upon Christians in Europe to go to war in the Middle East to reclaim the Holy Land, because God willed it, according to him. Unfortunately, what God willed was apparently going to the Middle East and killing Jews and Muslims in and around Jerusalem, which is wild to me, because it's like you're going to reclaim the Holy Land, but you had to go there from Europe to take it from the people that were already there, right? Like the Jews and Muslims were already there. So you, as Europeans, are going there to reclaim something that you didn't really have in the first place, but what do I know? And then in 1145, Pope Eugene III announced a second crusade because the first one wasn't good enough. And there were 3 crusader states established in the area. Now, during this second crusade, the Muslim armies in the area actually were pretty well prepared this time, and they had some hard-fought victories. But still, tons of Christians, Muslims, and Jews died because of this. Now, I should point out, again, I'm a little bit biased because I personally am Jewish, but during both instances of the First and Second Crusade, Jews in Europe were horrifically persecuted, some losing their lives, and the rest having their livelihoods just destroyed. But the horror didn't end there because, of course, there was a Third Crusade. And during this Third Crusade in 1189, European leadership claimed they were protecting Jews. And that's why you can read online of the Knights Templar protecting Jews, whether it be in Europe or in Jerusalem. But here's the thing. The European leadership only wanted to protect the Jews because when you look at the fine print, they were putting taxes specifically on Jews so that the Jews could use their money to fund the war effort. And again, this war effort was unfortunately killing Jews and a ton of Muslims and ultimately a bunch of Christians. They died too. So it's war is bad. So if you couldn't tell, I think this whole situation is pretty up, at least what I've read about it, and I'm sure you guys out there know much more than me about this situation, but bottom line, a whole bunch of people from a whole bunch of different ethnicities lost their lives. And by the way, even though the Knights Templar were like holy knights that had their allegiance with the Pope, it was Pope Clement V that in 1307 turned on the Templars, rounded them up, had them tortured until they gave false confessions, and then once they did those false confessions, they just were all killed. They were like burned at the stake and stuff. So I'm telling you guys, it be your own people, right? It's always your own people. So I guess the moral of the story is if some people in places of authority tell you to do something so that you can get your hands dirty and then you effectively do what they told you to do, they're going to turn around, use you as a scapegoat and a patsy. They're going to kill you, and then they're going to just have their hands wiped perfectly clean because they didn't have to do anything other than kill you. But anyway, this dress watch, again, pretty unique when it comes to its design, and it's definitely something that is polarizing, much like the Crusades. See what I did there? It all made sense in the end. I'm sad. So when we look super close at the dial, we see a very captivating guilloche pattern. Again, it's a very clean dial from what I can see. Now, when we flip the watch over, we can see that most likely Miyota movement. And I wouldn't say there's a ton of decoration here. In fact, there are some discernible like tool marks, but I wouldn't say it's like a filthy, nasty movement. It's still like decent to look at in there. It's just not highly decorated. And again, this is a sub $300 watch, guys. But before we go any further, let's go ahead and jump into the pros and cons. First pro, really dig the dial, right? I just said it. I'm a sucker for guilloche pattern light dials, especially when you pair them with blue hands. I don't think these are heat treated blued hands. I think that this is potentially, blue paint, but either way, it looks very nice with the clean white dial. And then it's just icing on the cake with that guilloche pattern. I really do like anything with a sun and moon on it, whether it be a moon phase or something like this, a day-night indicator. Again, that blue and gold just works very well with the white guilloche dial. And then I also like the 24-hour dial. Again, this isn't dual time, but it gives you an AM/PM day-night indicator along with that 24-hour. So very, very cool. And I'm a fan of the layout overall, but it's not perfect, right? So let's take a look at the cons. First con, I do not like the text on the dial. It seems almost like they put stickers on it, and it shouldn't be there. It shouldn't say day and night. And then the offset logo, or I should say brand font, it's just boring, and I really don't like the placement of it. It seems like an afterthought. Next in the cons section is that the proportions of this watch are pretty much ginormous in every way. I've heard that before. The dimensions are just tiny. Big, huge. Next con is that I'm just personally not a fan of open hearts, but if you dig that, then this is definitely an option for you. And then finally, the lume is not the best. But hear me out, guys. All in all, when we're looking at this Ekis Templar, again, I'm probably mispronouncing the name of the watchmaker, I apologize. I had a lot of fun doing research for this review and talking about something that was somewhat controversial. I tried to make light of it like I do with everything on this channel. I don't take anything all that seriously, except, when we're talking about anime titties. But seriously, I think for under $300, for someone who wants to get a taste of a more complicated watch with a bunch of things on the dial and some things going on, this is a way for you to explore that, maybe scratch that itch without breaking the bank, because again, this is under $300 and you're getting an automatic timepiece with a display case back and some different complications. I don't know if you'd consider an open heart really a complication, but that 24-hour dial and that day-night indicator, it's something fun to look at, and it's not your everyday micro-brand diver. So this is something to consider. However, if you have a slender wrist, this is not even something you can consider, in my opinion. It's just very large. Well, guys, if you enjoyed this episode and you kind of liked me getting into the weeds a little bit when it came to history, fear not, we're going to have more of that over on my channel membership. If you want to go take a look at that, I'm about to interview one very, very well-educated person when it comes to biblical studies, and we're going to be talking about the Knights Templar. So after this review, I figured it would be really interesting because I actually used him for some information. He gave me some perspective and everything, so I'm going to be interviewing him over on the member section. If you want more extra content like that, we have it once every week. You get access to the members Discord, and you get one extra piece of content each week for $4.99 a month, the price of a cup of coffee essentially nowadays. So again, join the channel members, click that join button next to the subscribe button, and support the channel. I really do appreciate it. All right, guys, there you have it. Another Microbrand Monday in the books. You're not seeing this on Monday because we had some issues with the initial recording. The audio was cutting in and out, and I sounded like William Shatner. But I will catch you next time, guys. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay blessed. I'm Jory Goodman, the Time Telling. Always remember, I didn't invent time. I just tell it.